It is 6 o'clock in Texas, guys. Thank you for joining the special edition stream tonight. It should be a fun event. Looking forward to it. We're going to get started here in just a moment. All right, I have to mute my stream and unmute myself. Hey, guys, good evening. Thank you for joining tonight. APRS Thursday on Thursday. When we tried to do this last week, besides the fact that we messed up our schedules, people were saying, you know it's Wednesday, right? You know it's Wednesday. And I'm like, dude, I always stream on Wednesday. APRS Thursday is the official name of what we're talking about because it's like, you've heard of WinLink Wednesday, right? Okay. All right. Hopefully, if you haven't heard of WinLink Wednesday, let me know. Let me know if you haven't heard of WinLink Wednesday, and maybe we'll do a stream on WinLink Wednesday, and we'll have to do that on Wednesday, which I already stream on Wednesday. So it works out. But no, APRS Thursday is the name of an event. It's actually kind of like a net, like a weekly net. We're going to learn more about it tonight. So special thanks to Mike, KC8 OWL for joining us tonight. So shout out to the folks in the chat who are Green Text, Andy Callie, the Salty Ham. Saw a few more of you up there. YouTube channel members, appreciate you guys being here and supporting the channel today. And there's Andy, AA0AM. Appreciate that. David Fuller, the link for Discord is hamradio2.com/Discord. So, yeah, go check that out. So we're going to be talking about APRS tonight. Okay, WinLink ACOM, if you don't know what that means, we'll get to that later. All right, a couple of things real quick. First of all, I'm live streaming 3 times this week. Today, tomorrow, and Sunday. All right, so tomorrow's live stream is the 2nd edition European Happy Hour. And we did this 3 months ago, something like that. And for whatever reason, the YouTube algorithm gods that are out there, the YouTube overlords. I think I saw the tech prepper in the chat earlier. Thanks for joining, Gaston. I think he calls them the YouTube overlords, which is not a new term. I've heard that term before. Anyway, YouTube overlords has started to share my European Happy Hour live stream from 3 months ago, and for some reason in the last week and a half, it's gained like 10,000 views. I think it's probably because Callum's on it, and everybody likes to watch Callum. That's just a theory, though. I don't know why. Anyway, we talked about doing another one of these already, so we're going to do another one tomorrow. It's going to start at about 3 p.m. local time to me. I think that's 2000 UTC. I got my times confused there for a while, and I told the guys a different time than it was, but I emailed everyone today. So I think we got all that hammered out. Daylight savings time is kind of a pain in the butt, but also it helps if I could actually count, and that's always a challenge for me. So yeah, so tomorrow about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Texas time, there'll be 4 o'clock on the East Coast and 1 o'clock on the West Coast. We're going to do another European Happy Hour live stream. That's about 7 o'clock in, 7 o'clock? No, 8 o'clock. It's about 8 o'clock? Or, see, I can't even count anymore. I think it's 8 o'clock in London. So, but they do a daylight savings time over there also, and I don't know when that starts, but I don't think it's started yet anyway. So, yeah, that's going to be tomorrow. And then, so today, tomorrow, and Sunday. Sunday is the March giveaway. Now, I'll go ahead and put this link in the chat. March 2023. That link right there in the chat. You can go out and sign up for the giveaway. I've got 12 or 13 items to be given away. 3 Zoom spots, 2 KM4 ACK antennas, 1 TNC4 from MobiLinked. Talking about APRS today. So, the brand new TNC4 from MobiLinked. And 2 one-year subscriptions to Ham Radio Deluxe. We're going to give away a couple of Coffee and Ham Radio antennas. T.O.'s going to join me on the stream. And a couple of Edfong antennas. So a couple things from my shop up there. So that's happening Sunday. This is happening tomorrow. And kind of on a little bit more somber note, I don't want to bum anyone out or anything like that, but if any of you know Scott from Ham Radio from Non-Techies, KI5 GNL, no, NPL. GNL is another friend of mine, Ron. KI5 NPL. Scott was in a bad automobile accident, I think, yesterday. Now, he's all right. He's conscious. He's alert, but he is in the hospital, and he's got to undergo surgery tomorrow. I checked with him before going live, and I was like, dude, is it okay if I share this with people? And he's like, yeah, go ahead. And I got his permission to set up a GoFundMe for him. He's like, it totaled his car. He got T-boned really badly in his SUV that he drives around. And he said it totaled it, and he has to go in for surgery tomorrow. And he's like, wow, it's bad news all around for that. So I got permission to set up a GoFundMe for him. I'm going to do that tonight or tomorrow morning, and I'll share that on my European Happy Hour stream tomorrow, and then I'll send it out to my email list as well. So those of you who have the means, if you don't have the means, it's okay. But if you do have the means, you can kind of help support Scott that way. But if you know Scott, if you have his email or his phone number, you might reach out to him. I texted with him today after I found out about this, and he replied to me, and he's like, hey, man, how's it going? I was like, dude, let me know if you need anything. He's like, I will, and I got permission to share this again. So yeah, you guys be thinking about praying for Scott, however you handle that sort of thing in your life. So good dude. Scott's a really good guy. So sorry to hear that he's having such a hard time. All right, let's go to that screen right there and unmute. And what's going on, Mike? How are you tonight?
Oh, man. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. APRS Army. Thank you, everybody.
That's
jumping
right.
on here. We have unleashed an army of APRS users that we didn't even know existed. And
right.
This is really, really cool. So thank you. Seriously, thank you very much for having me on.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm sorry we got our times mixed up last week.
We had a double whammy, man. We had UTC. First of all, we're done. Oh my God, UTC. And then, it was daylight savings too.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, it's it's crazy, but
thank you for making thank you for doing this on a Thursday to help us celebrate APRS Thursday.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So give us a brief overview. Tell us what APRS Thursday exactly is, how it came about. You don't have to get real detailed. And I know you've got a presentation for us that you did a really good job on. So I'm looking forward to hearing that. So please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. So my name is Mike, KC8OWL. I live in Las Vegas, but the 8 call sign, I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio. So that's where I got the 8 call sign. I never changed it after we moved. But I'm gonna, I've got the slides here, and I've modified them since the version you saw. And we're just gonna really walk through this whole story here together tonight on what the heck is APRS Thursday? How did it happen? What is a hot G? It doesn't stand for hot girls. And what that's sort of an oxymoron, I guess, in ham radio, right?
Yeah.
So we're just going to kind of go through this all together here tonight, and I'm going to give you all the backstory to APRS Thursday, how it all happened, and how you do it, and a couple other tidbits too. But what we're not going to do, I mean, this is not a deep dive tonight on sort of the technology behind APRS and how it works. We could do that someday, but that would get kind of boring, and it won't be that exciting. But we could do it in a different day. But this is going to be about APRS Thursday, like I said, the how, the why, the what, how do you do it, and to help tell that story, let me say those famous words. Anybody who works remotely, you've heard them. Let me share my screen real quick.
Yeah, that's right.
So here we go. All right, share this. And
all right, it always goes full screen on me, so let me adjust that real quick. That's fine there. Bump.
And
I think you're fine. Yeah, I think you're good. Okay,
then you can see that. We'll hide the thumbnail. There we go. All right, everybody, so here we go. We're going to walk through this together. So what is APRS? First of all, APRS stands for Automated Packet Reporting System, and it's the work of WB4APR, Bob Regina, who's a silent key at this point. I believe he passed about a year or so ago.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a senior research engineer at the United States Naval Academy, and really he implemented what was sort of the first incarnation of APRS as we know it today, and it was done on an Apple II computer in 1982. So just for the record. I was starting high school in 1982, so I know what the APRS is. But and what he was using it for actually is what they needed. Was a VHF based method for tracking naval ships. And that's what it was really all about, was a way to track the position of naval ships over VHF radio. And then, ultimately it emerged and it sort of morphed into, the ham radio world. But when we talk about APRS from a ham radio standpoint, it is obviously a radio-based system for real-time digital communication. And what type of communications? I mean, generally it's going to include your GPS location, your coordinate information. It could be weather information. You see a lot of folks out there have digipeaters on the air that are also connected to like weather stations where it'll share that sort of data. Different telemetry, text messages, we'll talk about that, the actual messaging part a lot here, because that's really the heart of APRS Thursday. Different announcements, queries. For example, you can send an APRS message to a destination out there and find out when the next ISS pass is going to occur for your location. You can get your local weather information by sending your zip code. You don't even need to send your zip code; it already knows your location. But there's a few places that you can send it to get your forecast and all sorts of different stuff. So it's really cool. But so how does it work? So when we talk about APRS, sort of the infrastructure that makes this all work is a thing called a digipeater. And it's sort of like a voice repeater, but it's also pretty different. So digipeaters are store and forward devices. So that's where they're different from a voice repeater. A voice repeater operates on two different frequencies at the same time. We all know how that stuff works. The way a digipeater works, it's all on one frequency. It hears a packet, it stores it, turns around and shoots it out, again, from, with more power from a higher location, that sort of thing. And everybody's on the same frequency in the same, for example, in North America, we all share the same frequency, 144.390 FM. But the messages, the APRS messages within the packets, contains information about how many times that message that I send from starting with my VX5 right here, how many hops it could make, how many times it could go from one digipeater, get turned around and rebroadcast out to another digipeater, to sort of take that message and take it further down the line to get it further out. Each time it does do that, it's called a hop. But when you send an APRS message out, it doesn't just go forever. It's very, very prescriptive in how you set that, some of your settings and how many times you want that message to make a jump from one digipeater, get turned around and go to the next, to the next. It's all part of the messaging. So they don't just go on forever. And, sort of the other critical component to enabling things like APRS Thursday is this thing called an iGate, or an internet gateway. And basically what that does is, it generally interfaces to a digipeater, and it takes those messages now and it introduces them to the internet. And that's where you can start to really, for example, APRS Thursday all day long, we're trading messages around the globe in like a second or two. And it's all happening through iGates. And we'll talk more about how that works in another slide or two. I'm just kind of breaking the ice here and some of the key components to making it work. Take us to the next one. So here's an example. Again, anybody who's participated in APRS Thursday, you've probably gotten a flood of messages throughout the day from all around the world. That's what makes it really cool. But how does it know where you are? How does it know where to send that message? And so I've got an example here that I'll kind of walk through. And again, it's not in the weeds detail. This is high level, but it's basically, this is how the APRS system knows how to take my message that I'm going to send to, for example, K7XYG in Phoenix. He's way too far away to reach simplex or even, through a digipeater. So how does it get to Cody? The way this works, we'll start on the left-hand side. We start with my FT5, my radio. Now, these radios have GPSs in them. You know, they know where you are. So this radio has been beaconing out to a digipeater, okay, all day since yesterday. It just
Mm-hmm.
happens that it's my digipeater. I've got one. I've got one upstairs, so my closest digipeater is about 20 feet away. But it's it doesn't matter for the example. But I have been beaconing my position to this digipeater since yesterday, basically. My digipeater is connected to an iGate, okay, which is connected to the APRS network. That is the real backbone of how we get messages around the world. It's basically goes out over the internet. So this APRS network, the data from this is what feeds websites like aprs.fi. So if you go to aprs.fi, I mean, we've all probably been there. We could see, hey, here I am. Here's all the people around me. Your city. Depends what you want to look at. That data is what feeds these websites. But we'll go back to the example again, how this works. So I'm sending a message from my radio through my digipeater, which is connected to my iGate, which is connected to APRS network. So we're halfway there. Okay. But how does it know how to get that message to K7XYG, who's in Phoenix? Well, at the same time, Cody's radio in Phoenix has been beaconing just like mine. It's been beaconing through his digipeater, which is connected to his iGate, which is also connected to the same APRS network. The network knows where he is from the last time that it heard his beacon. So it says, oh, okay, Mike over here, KC8OWL, has addressed this message to K7XYG-9. And the last time we heard from K7XYG-9, here was the path that he took to get us here. So let's take that message from Mike and let's send it over to Cody following that exact path that we last heard from him on when he beaconed his position out there. So again, I said, we won't get into the details of how this works, but conceptually, this is really how we get APRS messages to flow around the world in the matter of a second or two. And it's just, it's a combination of the device. And, you've probably seen, the last couple of weeks, reminding folks, hey, beacon your position. I'll show you why that's important in another couple of slides too. But that is how, again, it's your last position report. That's how the system knows where to route those messages to. All right, so let's kind of take this another step. Now, actually, so we've kind of had that real quick and dirty background on what is APRS, how do we get messages around the world. So what is APRS Thursday? Like you said, well, I don't know. It's the day after WinLink Wednesday, basically. But the whole thing about APRS Thursday started on Instagram, and it started with Cody K7XYG, and at that time, a bunch of us were following each other on Instagram, and he was he was posting things like, hey, you know what? I think these radios, we can send each other messages somehow, on these easy radios. How can we send each other text messages? And I've had my license for about 23 years. And to be honest with you guys, I didn't give APRS even a second look until about a year or so ago. It's like, oh yeah, that's that position reporting thing. And I just went on my way. So I'm like, you know what? It's time for me to learn what APRS is too. So we started playing with it and trying to figure this out, reading the Yazoo manual, which isn't always the easiest thing to do. And, so we started experimenting. And then, 2 or 3 of us started experimenting with, hey, yeah, this works. This is cool. Sending each other messages and then, messaging on Instagram. Hey, did you get it? The more we talked about it on Instagram, a couple other folks jumped in, other locations and things. And, this is getting pretty cool, sending each other messages. But again, we were sort of coordinating behind the scenes on Instagram. And then, it started to get bigger. So again, mostly through social media and just awareness of, hey, what are you talking about? How's this work? We had our first real net was actually not even a year ago. It was based on my records. I could be wrong, but I believe our first real net was April 21st. And we had about 20 operators that were messaging each other individually. And that word individually, I'm very intentional about that word because that's not ideal. So in other words, it's like, hey, Jason, let me send you a message on Thursday. And when you get
Right.
it, you send it back to me. But none of the other people who want to play along could see the fact that we were sending a message back and forth. So it
Yeah.
really wasn't a net per se because it was very one-to-one. So I'm like, I wonder if there's a way to do this like one to many, you know. In other words, I mean, we're all familiar with like, email, email reflectors and things like that. You send an email to this address and it goes to everybody on the reflector. So I started looking around started Googling, and yeah, sure enough, there was.
Mm.
There's this technology out there. There's a service out there called the announcement server, and it's ANSRVR is
Mm-hmm.
the station ID. And this service is provided by Lin, KJ4ERJ. And what it basically does is it provides that one to many distribution of APRS messages. That's really the heart of how APRS Thursday works. And in another slide, I'll talk more about that. But I was like, cool. So this is it, So we tried it out one week, and then I emailed Lynn, and I was like, "Hey, is it okay if we use this?" For we're kind of trying to have a net, and Lynn is an amazing supporter. He's very very supportive, and really appreciate all that he does to provide this. And I'll talk about Hatchy in a minute. But our group that we use for this net, we're not the only group. There's probably a few hundred groups that exist on this service, ANSRVR. We're just one of them. And, just for the record, Leon is also the author of if anyone's using the APRS ISCE Windows APRS application, that Lynn is the author of that software as well.
Okay. Little side note here. So we talked about Scott in the beginning, ham radio for non-techies. He did an excellent video, and I'm going to post that in the chat right now, telling you how to set up and send a text message with APRS.
Okay.
So
cool.
yeah, so go check those of you, and somebody just asked that question in the chat. Is it possible that you can send a message to a non-ham regular cell network number? And
Absolutely.
yes, it is. It absolutely is.
Absolutely.
So I just posted that in the chat, so you guys go check that out. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Awesome. No, that's a great call out because I didn't mention that in here, but there's another service out there called SMS GTE.
I think that's the one that Scott talks about. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it provides the gateway for messaging between a cell phone and a APRS capable device. So ANSRVR and Hatchy, how does this all work? So what is Hatchy? So like I said, I told you what it's not. It's not hot girls and ham radio.
Right.
It stands for hams on the gram, hams on Instagram.
And, okay, I was wondering if Graham was Instagram, but I wasn't sure.
But before APRS Thursday was even a glimmer of a thought in anybody's mind, probably for a couple years even before that, the hams on the gram YSF reflector, which is also bridged to a DMR talk group, existed. And there's a Discord server out there for it too. But basically, it started out like I said, either YSF, system fusion technology, or DMR, network of folks around the world to get together once in a while and just talk on the radio. And K7XYG would host nets, different voice nets from time to time on it, and people would just join on Discord and get a look at what everybody looks like too, while you're doing the net, different things like that. So I figured, hey, this thing was sort of born out of that group. So it was only right to make the group on ANSRVR, the announcement server, but just call it Hot G, because really, hams on the gram was really where this thing started. So that's the connection. That's really what Hot G is all about. It just stands for hands on the gram, which was a voice network, which is still out there. I think Cody did a net last week on it. So, but here's how it works. Like I said, we've got the announcement server sitting out there listening, connected to the internet, basically. And within that announcement server is our group, Hot G. So how do you use it? How does it work? Well, in this little block diagram, again, we'll kind of go through it. So we'll start with my radio, my FT5, KC8OWL-7. So I want to send a message. And remember what we talked about before. When I send the message goes from my radio to my digipeater to my iGate, which is connected to the internet, APRS network. From there, it goes to the announcement server. Okay, so just think about it like this. At this point now, it's up in the cloud. It's up in the announcement server, and I have addressed. I'll show you this. I'll show you some screenshots of what I mean by this in a minute. But for now, I'll just say I have addressed my message to ANSRVR and specifically to the Hatchy group. Okay, so ANSRVR sees that, sends it back out to the APRS network. From there, it goes out to, and you see I very intentionally say iGates with the red S, because at this point, this is the one-to-many. We've got these operators over here. Number one could be, somebody in California. Number two, somebody up in New York. It's not hundreds. As you see, we had 491 operators on last week's net all around the world. They have all made their presence, their location. Remember, we talked about location. They have made their location known to the announcement server. That way, when the announcement server takes this message and says, "Oh, hey, I got to send this to like 400 people now," and it goes out and follows all that routing. So here's how you actually do it. And I've got a screenshot coming up after this too. But there's two ways, really only two different commands that you need to remember when we talk about how do you interact with the group on ANSRVR. The first one is the J command. And J simply stands for join. And like I said, I'll show you a picture in a minute. When you send a J command through your radio, that's your interface, you will join that group. By joining a group, basically think of it as like read-only access. You monitor all the traffic that comes by, but you haven't actually said anything. You haven't communicated outward. You haven't sent any messages. But sending a join command will allow you to receive all the traffic. The other way is to send a CQ command, and CQ probably rings a bell for most hams. It's what you say when you're calling CQ. When you send a CQ command with the group name and then your text, whatever your text is will be sent. Remember the one-to-many model. Your message will be sent to everyone who has joined that group. So one of the questions I often get, is, "Hey, I stopped getting messages. How come?" When you join or you interact with the announcement server, I guess we'll say you'll only be active for about 12 or so hours. Okay. That's kind of between 12 to say somewhere, not exactly 12. It's a little bit longer, but the point is your active membership to the Hatchy group does not last indefinitely. And I mean, this is intentional. It's, maybe you don't want your radio blowing up with traffic every day, all the time. So it's about a 12-hour period. So if, to sort of renew your 12-hour membership, just send another message, or just send a J or something like that. But that's why sometimes the messaging will just, say, "Hey, I stopped getting messages." That's why there's a countdown timer. So just kind of be aware of that. Here's what it looks like. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
One question that someone asked along that line is, how do you unsubscribe if they're tired of getting these messages? Is there a command for that if they've checked in and they're like done with it or something?
Yeah. No, the same thing. In fact, we'll plug that example into this slide. But so the first one I have here on the left-hand side, you can see in the 2 line, and again, that's just how it looks on the FT5. It look exactly the same on the FT3 and probably the FT2, just in black and white. But in the other radios too. We'll talk more about radios in a minute. But I'm sending this message to ANSRVR, and the text is J space Hatchy. So what's going to happen there when I click MTX for message transmit? When I click that button, It's going to send Hatchy, and it's going to say, okay, KC8OWL has joined this group. Here you are, and I basically just sit there and I'll receive any of the traffic. The next one to the right is the CQ, like we talked about, CQ space Hatchy space, and then anything else you want to include in that message, you can include. And, sort of like, happy APRS Thursday from fabulous Las Vegas, KC8OWL. You put that in your message, but the key here, again, CQ, is you're actually sending that message out to everyone else who is actively joined on the Hatchy group. Now, to your question, and the question from the chat, if you want to stop receiving the traffic before you time out, basically, all you need to do is send a uniform, send the letter U, space Hatchy, and transmit that message, and you will be unjoined from the group. And then you will stop receiving the messages from the announcement server.
Okay. So
pretty straightforward. I should have included the link here, but there's a wiki doc out there on ANSRVR that Lynn had put together. So if you just go to Google and you Google ANSRVR and maybe just throw APRS in the search string too, it'll take you to an online doc. It'll give you a little bit more background. There's a few other commands that you could send to get some other information too, but it's pretty cool.
Cool. Good.
So 24-hour net, man, that seems like a long time. But think about it though. It's not like a voice net where somebody has to sit there and answer the calls. So, fortunately, the data is logged for us. So I don't have to really run, the net. But the reason we do a 24-hour net is because this truly is a worldwide net. And that's I want to be able to provide an equal opportunity for anyone, no matter where they're at in the world, to be able to check in at their convenience through that 24-hour period. So it's really just a way to facilitate, equal opportunity for anybody to participate, regardless of where you might be in this world, at your convenience. And you see, I got the point here. Brush up on your UTC conversions. So whenever I send the invitations out, and I'm also guilty of it at the same time, so I'll speak out of both sides of my mouth at the same time. But at some point in the future, I'm probably going to start enforcing the UTC time. So, in other words, right now I take late check-ins, that show up afterwards, later on in the evening, or I'll take them, before the net starts sometimes too. Yeah, it's cool. It's okay. It's not rocket science here. So, but the goal is to make this a 24-hour net that starts at 0 hours Thursday UTC. Now, here's the thing. For those of us in North America, that actually happens on Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday night. So that's the thing to remember. Brush up on your UTC time conversions. So I do try and acknowledge as many check-ins individually as I can by sending a message back. That's, one of the cool things about the FT5, but the other radios too, is you can create scripted messages so that like I can reply to it by just, a couple keystrokes on the touch screen here. It's not like I have to type them all out. I type them out once and then I just send it, because I it's important to me to acknowledge everyone that I can. Again, I do have to sleep at some point in time, and it is a 24-hour net. I have a job too. I actually have to work. So, but at the same time, I try and acknowledge everybody that I can, because I appreciate the fact that they're taking some time out of their day to actually check in and help build the net. And but it's more than just building the net, right? Because let's think about what we've done here over the last year. Like I said, last week we had 491 unique operators check in.
Wow.
Now, I'm not saying they didn't know how to use APRS before this net, but at least we created an opportunity for folks to use APRS, not just to passively receive the beacon from some weather station once in a while or whatever, but to actively engage with other hams around the world through APRS messaging. It's cool. You never know when I mean, hey, you never know when you might need to do that. And to the point you were making earlier, you know, you could send it. I could send a message from my radio to my cell phone or anybody's cell phone just as fast as I could send it to another radio. So it's a great service. It's a great capability to have. In fact, there are folks out here, in the Vegas area, I know, maybe they'll go shooting out in the desert, something like that. There's no cell phone coverage out there, but there's APRS coverage because we've got some really great high profile digipeaters here in Vegas. And so they'll send a message to their wife, to their cell phone or whatever from the radio in their truck from, out in the desert. So, the capability is certainly nice to have. So if we created an opportunity for folks to learn how to use it, to get more comfortable with it, hey man, I think that's a win for all of us, right? So
absolutely,
can't go wrong with that.
Yep.
So how do you do it? How can I participate? If someone's out there who hasn't done it yet, to kind of break this down a little bit. First of all, obviously, it's by radio. Some radios have APRS capabilities built into them natively. And what I mean by that, a second there, mostly it's Yaesu at this point. Right. Kenwood, in fact, here's some history. When Bob Brangita was developing APRS, he was working with Kenwood on it. So Kenwood was actually the first, radio supplier to integrate this capability. Sadly, they're sort of out of the game at this point. Right. But, when they were still making the radios, they were the ones to have. And that's why you'll see like the D74s or, some of the other older Kenwood rigs that have the APRS cap. I mean, they'll sell over on QRZ, for twice of what they sold for when they were new, just because, hey, if you want one, they're the ones to have. That's the only way to get it. But Yaesu primarily at this point, they're handheld. Like I've got the FT5. They got maybe 3 different mobile rigs out there that have this built in. A really popular one, and I get more questions about this every week than any other radio, and it's the Anytone 878. Depending on which version of that radio you have, you may or may not be able to have a bi-directional APRS exchange.
Correct.
Yeah. But there are folks out there every week that use their 878, and usually it's like the UV Model 2, one of the newer models.
That's the newest one, the UV2, the 878 UV is, I think it was one way. I think it was receive only, but it wouldn't transmit, or I might have that backwards.
Yeah,
actually, I think it's transmit.
You could
send but not receive. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the latest one, the UV2, which is the one I don't have it here with me, but the UV2 will send and receive true APRS beacons and text messages. So yeah,
that's the most common question I get every week and through Facebook, and that is how do I make it work with my 878? Now here's the other thing, and folks probably already know this, but if you didn't know it, you can use APRS through DMR, whether it's a repeater or a hotspot. So Brandmeister only. This doesn't work on TGIF or the other DMR networks that are out there for ham. But basically you just got to go into your self-care portal on the Brandmeister website, create a profile for yourself, a couple configuration steps. It's on the internet. You can just Google it, and you can use your DMR radio, like I said, through a local repeater or a hotspot for APRS messaging also. So that does work. And something really cool, I definitely wasn't the first one to do this, but I saw some other folks were doing it on the weekly net, but they were checking in via JS8 over 40 meters. And I'm like, what? That's pretty cool. So, I started looking into it, and I got into JS8 also. And I've done it myself. So, but basically, you can check in. It's only one direct. It's not bi-directional. So in other words, I can check into the net using JS8 on my HF rig on 40 meters, for example. But if anybody replies to me or anyone else who does it, you will not get the response. But it's just a cool thing to try. So on the Facebook group page, talk more about that at the end, but on the Facebook group page, I did document the process on how someone can check into the net or use JS8 call to send an APRS message to anybody, not just the net, but to anybody. So that's one way to do it. Long way of saying it. One way to do it is through radio. Another way to do it is also through radio or with a cell phone or a tablet or basically with a TNC. Okay, so you mentioned the Mobilink, the V4. So mine should be arriving any day. I got in on a second wave of the of when they became available here, so I got a notification that it shipped. But these things, man, as soon as they're in stock, they're gone. These are awesome tools.
Yes, yes.
But you can use that, and that will enable you to participate, not just APRS, but you can use it for WinLink, you can use it for PAC, you can use it for all sorts of different things. Using a radio that doesn't have APRS capability built into it natively. And there's other options out there too. So I just want to mention that. You can do it by mobile app. A couple of them here, the aprs.fi is an iOS-based app. A lot of people use that. Let's see check-ins from that. The Droid version is called APRS Droid, which I've got that on an old Droid tablet too, so I've used that before. There's a few other ones out there too, but those are the two most popular ones. And there's some desktop applications or laptop, whatever you want to run it on. But like I said, there's APRS ISCE, which I'm running upstairs in the shack as we speak. There's also Pinpoint. There's a couple others. If you happen to run Mac OS, there's some options for Mac OS also. I threw this slide in here today. This was not part of the presentation, but check this out. So one of the folks checking in today, I've got my message right here. I took a picture of it on my radio. Pico APRS version 4, check in via the International Space Station, ISS, okay? So the reason I'm calling this out is just because, this is sort of an extra credit type of situation. So first of all, look at the size of this little, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's a neat little gadget, but this Pico APRS radio, it's also a voice radio. I mean, it's not just APRS. Look at how small that thing is. I mean, it's
tiny.
It's a gadget, basically. But here it is too. I went to the ARISS.net website, and here's the station. This is a 1989 looking website, basically. But this is Europe here, and this is Germany, where I'm pointing to the call sign DB1NTO-7, where it again basically showing that he logged this contact through the digipeater on the ISS space station. Now, he's not the first one to do that. We've seen, usually see at least one every week from somebody. But I always kind of chuckle and give those folks extra credit, because for that to work, that means they had to do some research first, figure out when the pass is going to happen, and then get their message out there right on time. So anyway, hats off for doing it on that little tiny radio at the same time. So good work.
Yep.
So how big is the net? Like I said, I mentioned it before, but
very cool.
Last week we hit 400. And when I admit, guys, I have to get better at this. I sort of use the word check-in and operator interchangeably, but they're very different. The thing that I measure is how many unique operators checked in, because we'll see folks that'll check in 5 times. They'll check in once on their, that's good. I'm not saying it in a bad way. It's cool. But they'll check in on their phone. They'll check in from their handheld radio. They'll check in from their, maybe they're running, a desktop application. So basically they're testing them all. And that's totally cool. But, I don't count every single one of those. I count the operator's call sign, not the SSID.
Yeah.
So just to kind of bring some clarity to what the heck am I actually measuring? I got to get better about being more consistent in the terminology I use with that. But, so this week we're hoping to break 500. And if last week was a predictor, I think probably have a pretty good chance of breaking 500 this week. So if
it goes for 24 hours, is it ended already for the day by now?
Technically it should have, but my radio's been beeping away over there. So like I said, there's always late check-ins that happen.
Sure.
And I take them too, like I said, it's not rocket science, but so that's cool. But this is great. Like I said, when I first started, I only got a couple slides left here, then we'll be wrapped up. Um,
Okay.
but again, this is incredible. This is awesome, and I'm so glad that I can help facilitate this. Like I said, for the APRS Army, it gets bigger every week, really. And like I said, hey, maybe some were using APRS already. I guarantee you some had probably never even tried it until they heard about this net. And that's the part that I like the best, is because it's a capability that we're helping folks get familiar with in a friendly environment. And hey, just send messages back and forth to folks once in a while. It's fun, it's easy, it's fast. It's not the same as sitting down at at your HF rig and end up on a half-hour rag chew about nothing. So, you can kind of be in and out quick and do it at your leisure. And it's 24/7. It's out there. So I feel good about that. Here's what it looks like on the map. I'm sorry, do you have a question?
No, somebody see. This is me not remembering daylight savings time. We've actually got about 15 minutes left in this UTC day. I'm so used to it ending at 6 p.m. my time. It's actually it doesn't end until I'm UTC -5 right now. So
you're right.
So yeah,
So yeah, like I said, I'm as guilty as
yeah, I know. It's daylight savings time needs to just stop. It's hard enough to do UTC conversions in your head, but then add daylight savings time to the mix, and no thank you.
Thank goodness my iPhone, I can set 4 different time zones, and I can.
Oh yeah, well there you go. That's good.
So
okay, tell us about the map
straight.
then.
So this map, this is something we started doing a couple weeks ago, and again, thanks to Lynn, for doing the first one and kind of walking me through what the settings were so that I could replicate it on my own instance of APRS ISCE. But this is last week's check-in net for folks that were beaconing their position. If you weren't beaconing position, you're not going to show up on here. But you can see, very heavily populated around the United States, really heavy on the eastern half of the country. We had some folks down here in South America, maybe 3 or 4 different stations in South America. Over here was Hawaii. There's always 2 or 3 folks from Hawaii that check in every week. Up here, we always get a good representation from Europe. Up here in Switzerland, here's our weekly check-in from Russia. The very first time last week we had, and I think this is the first time ever, we had a guy check in from India, which took him, as far as I can remember, but COVID brain is real too. We had a check in from India, and then we get over here to South Pacific and down here in New Zealand, and we had a couple folks. So long story short, this map with a couple of configuration settings in the APRS ISCE application, you can let this map populate over the entire period of the net, and it'll start plotting everybody on the map. So I think this is kind of cool. It's something I've wanted to do for quite a while, and see how does this stuff look if we put it on a map. And I didn't even realize it, like I said, but Lynn pointed out that, hey, my app can do it. That's cool. So this is what it looks like. I don't know what the deal is with Africa over here. Why I say that in all seriousness. I don't know if there's any sort of regulations or something like that permit the use, or maybe we just need to hire a new marketing manager for APRS Thursday.
Maybe so.
But yeah, I'd like to get some traffic over here. But this is what it looks like, if we put it on a map. It's always cool to see a picture. All right, we're going to round this out. I think we're coming up to the end here, but does this net cause congestion on the network? And it shouldn't, but it has. What this net really does is it helps identify misconfigured equipment connected to the APRS IS network. And I say, Switzerland, we have a problem, because we did have a problem. So basically what started happening is, as more and more folks started to join the net and participate, there were periods where it was just, the traffic was just crazy. And it was like repeating over and over and over again. Packet looping is what it ended up being called. Long story short, what ended up happening is there were some misconfigured eye gates in Switzerland, and they were incorrectly routing traffic. And the only way that this was figured out was through some Herculean data analysis that was done by KJ4ERJ, also DU2XXR, who's also N2RAC, HB9EYZ, HB9TQJ, and F4FXL, who is also KC3FRA. Those folks spent about a week really combing through the log data, and were able to identify, basically the devices that were misconfigured and incorrectly routing traffic that were basically just spewing out data, over and over and over again and causing the congestion. So at first, there are some folks out there, oh my God, I hate this net. This thing causes so much traffic. I cringe every Thursday, Okay, why? So I'm very thankful that, these folks they're above my pay grade, but, they were able to dig into the data and take that and turn it into a good thing and say,
Yeah.
hey, let's get this fixed. Here's what the problem is. Here's what you need to do. There was actually, came to find out, there was actually maybe some folks use this, but the YAC, yet another APRS client, there was a bug in the code that the author had identified because of this and had gone on to correct it. So that's a good news story. So, again, it's just really good. Last slide, where you find us. So we have a Facebook group, newly created, called APRS Thursday. I know if you don't use Facebook, there's other, not everybody's a Facebook fan, but we have a group out there. And a big thank you to William, KO4DBP, and Lee, ZL1LAC, for managing this Facebook page. Thank you very much. I took a look this afternoon. We have 746 members on that page as of this afternoon. So thank you, everybody. That is where anything and everything that has to do with this net, I'm going to put it there first. But there are other places that, that you will hear about us and see us. There's my Instagram, MAPD44256, my Twitter, which is my call sign. Here's another really good place if you're interested in APRS and you're not a member, is the APRS at groups.io. I share everything on that too. That's your traditional email reflector facilitated through groups.io. But everything goes there as well. And a really, really knowledgeable group of folks there. So it's worth joining if you're interested in APRS. And then lastly, if you just have a question about anything, and none of those previous, methods will work for you, shoot me an email at my call sign, kc8owl@yahoo.com. I'll be happy to try and answer any question for anyone or, help anybody out. But I also want to do another thank you to DU2XXR, J. Angelo, Rock, N2RAC. So some folks may be aware that, but there is the Philippines, basically APRS Net. APRSPH.net is the website. And it's a daily net. They operate a daily net. Maybe there's 10 or 15 check-ins every day, not a high volume thing, but a regular group of folks check in. I check in when I remember. But thank you so much, because, a lot of times I'll get messages and it'll be like, hey, did you get my check-in? And I'd go and try and look at the data and, figure it out real quick. If anyone wants to know if their check-in made it, all you need to do is go to this website, APRSPH.net. You created a tab for APRS Thursday right there on the page, and it's a running log. Just scroll down. It's in sequential order by time. Look for your call sign. If you see your call sign there, you made it. So again, thank you very much. So as you can see, as we've kind of gone through this, we've gotten some really, really great support from some experts and some folks that are, like I said, more knowledgeable about this than I am, that have really helped us grow. And so I just, round this out, again, by just saying, thank you to everybody for, the support and helping us grow. Like I said, we're here to learn together. That's one of the things about ham radio.
Right.
So we're, happy that we can help facilitate this.
Absolutely.
We could take questions now, or any other questions, but that's basically the spiel.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll take one or two questions. So I put a link to the Facebook group in here. We do have a hard stop at 7 or in 6 minutes, whatever time zone you're in, because TO is streaming, which is right there, and he starts in about 6 minutes. So he streams every Thursday night. This is not my normal night, so I don't want to step on any toes or anything here. But if you want to, if you don't, 749 is the group count, is the member count on the Facebook group right now. So we've got like 3 or 4 more since this afternoon. But that's the Facebook group, and there's a lot of great. If you have any questions that we don't get to tonight, then yeah, that's the probably a good place to do it. That or the email list. So yeah,
absolutely.
So DU2XXR is in the chat. He says thank you for the shout out.
Thank you for all the support, man. Helping make that the data exercise every Friday morning a lot easier.
Right. And Jeff's name on YouTube is Jeff. I don't know who this is, but he says a rough count for today was 597. So I don't know which, if you know Jeff.
I didn't even know that. I didn't know that yet. But,
yeah.
But I will tell you one thing. The radio was ringing off the hook.
I can kind of hear it in the background. Yeah. I have to figure out how to send a new message on this without doing a reply. I know how to do a reply, but I haven't sent a new message on this radio yet.
I'm glad you bring that up, Jason, because I will create and put out on the Facebook group with screenshots how to.
Okay.
On how to do that. So
okay.
I put together some how-to docs and put them out there already. It's not all that I want to do. I just gotta make some time and do them. But I want to make it. I want to be able to put something out there with screenshots to take somebody from who's never used APRS before on their Yaesu radio, up to the point where they send that message to the group. So that's on my list, man. I got you covered.
Cool. I'm sure you can. I'm sure you can find in the manual how to send an APRS message with the FT5. I've done it. It's just been a while and I don't remember. It's not something I'm used to doing, so I'm not really worried about it. But yes, I think that'd be useful to the group to have something like that. So totally, good deal.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you.
Well, very good. Okay, so so guys, thank you very much for joining today. And several people saying that they've checked in. And I'm looking forward to APRS Thursday being a catalyst for more APRS technology advancements. Yeah, that's a true statement right there. So this was fun, very informative, great presentation, Mike. Thank you very much for putting that together, and as detailed as it was, I thought you did a really good job. So
no, thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it. Thanks everybody.
Absolutely.
Thank you to the APRS Army. Gets bigger every week.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, those of you watching later on replay, put a comment in the video. Let us know what more you would like. We'll get Mike back on in a couple months and see how it's progressed and what's changed and what's new. And let us know if you've participated or not. So everyone go over. I just posted Tio's live stream in the chat as well. Everyone go check him out. It's always a good live stream on Thursday nights that he does every week. So 73 all. Mike, thank you once again. Appreciate you joining. And we'll see you on the APRS messaging service.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, right. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks, everyone. 73.